How's it going, everybody? Afro Anime here, coming at you with another video. And today, I'm doing a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time now. And that's talk about Dragon Ball Super. Now, I genuinely, absolutely hate Dragon Ball Super. I think it does Dragon Ball Z a complete disservice, and it retcons so much about Dragon Ball Z in general that it's unbelievable that people like the show as much as they do. Anyway, I'm here to talk about it and break it down, and we're going to start with Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. Now, when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, one thing that I absolutely despise about this show is the fact that everything feels so forced. When I first saw this for the very first time, I felt very underwhelmed. I didn't like anything about it, realistically. You had Beerus, the god of destruction, who just conveniently was asleep throughout all of Dragon Ball Z. And now he's just up, just in time for the plot to Dragon Ball Super to begin. Amazing. Now, I won't say that Dragon Ball as a series hasn't had villains that felt kind of forced or felt kind of out of place. For instance, having the androids after the whole Frieza saga was something I was always iffy about. How is it that these androids made out of metal are stronger than Frieza? You know? But letting that slide and just going into how the timing and why the androids showed up when they did, it makes sense. You start out with Dragon Ball Z, and the reason that Raditz shows up is because he is recruiting his brother so that they can form a Saiyan rebellion against Frieza. So him showing up now that Goku is older makes sense. It makes sense why he's showing up at the point that he did, as opposed to showing up back in Dragon Ball, for instance. Then you have this Vegeta and Nappa showing up to Earth. They show up because they hear about the Earth having Dragon Balls and they want immortality. So they show up to Earth, and it makes sense why they show up. Then you have the Namek saga, and they're after the Dragon Balls again, but this time on Namek. Again, this makes sense. They're on Namek because, well, Frieza, he heard Vegeta Scouter, I believe. He heard Vegeta Scouter and heard that there was more Dragon Balls on Namek. Meanwhile, the Earthlings go to Namek so they can bring back their friends. They come back. Then Trunks shows up talking about androids are coming in 3 years, so they train for the androids. The only point where I can say that Dragon Ball Z felt a little bit forced in terms of inclusion was the Buu arc, which I have to say was the worst arc of Dragon Ball Z, and it still was very enjoyable. But the Buu arc was the point where I felt like they just kind of included too much. They kind of just put Buu into the show for no explicit reason. After the Cell saga, there was no villain. Then all of a sudden, hey, there's this guy Majin Buu who's been dormant for mad long. Just didn't really feel like it made that much sense to me. But again, this was the ending of the series, to a great and successful series at that. So, Majin Buu showing up at the end, really didn't matter. It's the very ending of the series. But then you have Dragon Ball Super, and this show begins, like, one of the very first things that happen is a god of destruction, Beerus. Beerus wakes up, and essentially he says, hey, I want to go, and I had a dream about Super Saiyan God. And when I first heard this, I was kind of like, wow, they're kind of telling us the transformation really, really early. But maybe there's a reason for that. So, goes to King Kai's planet at some point, and there Goku wants to fight him. He goes all the way up to Super Saiyan 3, and then gets bodied in like 2 hits. And immediately I'm When I first saw this, I was like, holy shit, this guy is fucking strong. Like, wow. So, but then I kind of also wondered, like, how are you guys going to beat this guy without, making all the other forms seem like crap? So, they eventually go and do the ritual, and sure enough, Goku's now a god, and he's fighting Beerus. And I can't tell you how disappointed I was in Goku's transformation. For starters, how long has it been? Like 20 years? I'm not doing the math. I'm not fact checking, but it's been like damn near 20 years since Dragon Ball has released another show at this point. And the last transformation we got was Super Saiyan 4. And Super Saiyan 4 is a badass looking transformation. I don't care if you like GT. I don't care if you dislike GT. But you can't tell me that Super Saiyan 4 isn't a badass looking transformation. Then we get Super Saiyan God. And when I saw that it was just a ripoff of Super Saiyan 4 getting powered up, and then he's just in his base form with red hair, all nice and slender, no muscle mass whatsoever, I was disappointed as hell. I was like, this transformation must do something different that the other transformations just don't do. And from what I saw, it really fucking doesn't. It's just increases your power level, and that's about it. And this is another thing that I have a problem with in Dragon Ball Super. The recolors. There's way too many recolors in Dragon Ball Super. Almost every transformation, without the exception being maybe Ultra Instinct, which I have my own problems with, but all the other transformations in Dragon Ball Super, ALL, is just a recolor of a previous transformation that existed 20 plus years ago. Anyway, another thing I have a problem with is, and I'm going to say very briefly, but power scaling. Power scaling in Dragon Ball Super makes 0 sense. At the ending of the movie Battle of Gods, you have Whis saying that Beerus went 70%, like he used 70% of his power to beat Goku. That's great. I get a gauge of how strong Beerus is. He has a cap, he has a limit. But then they kind of retcon this come the show, where they don't really tell you how much power he's used. And throughout the entire show, you're just left to assume that he's stronger than every other person throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball Super, exception maybe freaking Jiren. But and some people still think that Beerus is stronger than Jiren if he was to go all out. I don't get this, because this makes no sense. This is where Dragon Ball Super already kind of lost me. In Battle of Gods, Goku harnesses the power of a god in his base form. He keeps this power. So now Goku is leagues above every other member of the Z Fighters. He has completely surpassed everybody, because he had a bunch of people put their hands on his back or whatever, and now he is the strongest thing out there. Okay, fine, cool. Can I side note? Can we just take a minute to tell you to talk about how stupid the ritual actually was? Videl has a Saiyan fetus in her stomach. They needed 6 Saiyans? She has a Saiyan fetus in her stomach, and as a result, she can participate in this ritual. They couldn't just make it 5 Saiyans. They couldn't just make it 5 Saiyans. They retconned Dragon Ball GT. It would not have mattered if they made it 5 Saiyans. Anyway, I digress. So now you have Goku leagues above all the other Z fighters in his base form, mind you. And he's able to go Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan God, and he then gets Super Saiyan Blue very shortly after. Again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I want to focus strictly on Battle of Gods. I can rant about Resurrection F next time, so I'm not going to talk about Super Saiyan Blue. But I will say this. One thing that I did like about Battle of Gods when I first watched it was it ended off on the note that Goku has not mastered this God Ki at all. Meaning that the energy multiplier that was the most basic, predictable thing that they could have done for a transformation, just level up his power. This wasn't the full extent of this God Ki. God Ki has so much more levels, so much more depth. It's about ki control. It's about being calm and all sorts of stuff. So much more they could have done for this transformation, just for it to be wiped away come Resurrection F. Again, nothing about the transformation for Battle of Gods felt earned. Not a damn thing. Another thing I had a problem with, character design. I get it. The scheduling, the overworking of the animators. Look, when you have a multi-billion-dollar company, I don't care if they're not getting paid a normal or a fair amount of money. When you have a multi-billion-dollar company and there are fan fiction people that make better animation than the people of this multi-billion-dollar company who have the power to say, hey, we can push back Dragon Ball Super for next month, maybe 2 months from now. But instead they choose to release crap like they did in episode 5, or just throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball Super for a large portion of it. There's no real excuse, especially when Dragon Ball Z, its predecessor 20 years prior, has just superb animation compared to Dragon Ball Super in like 2015. Yeah, the animation for Dragon Ball Super, I get it, they're trying to appeal more to the children, but you can't tell me that Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z looks worse than Dragon Ball Super's version of Vegeta. Tien Shinhan was super muscular. Now he's like a fucking stick. Same with Hercule Satan. Same with Goku. Same with Vegeta. Another thing I hated was the fact that Bulma's here. And this is just throughout Super. This isn't really Battle of Gods, but Bulma's here never changes throughout the entirety of Super. Bulma's here remains the exact same way it does since the beginning of the series, which really bothered me for the mere fact that if you watch any other version of Bulma, her hair is constantly changing to signify she's getting older. I don't know. I really can't stand Super. I'm gonna call this a video. I don't know how this is gonna do. It's kind of me just ranting on about Super. As you can tell, this is probably not. You can tell this isn't scripted. I just kind of go on my little rant. But this is just me talking about Battle of Gods. I'm trying to be as detailed and as thorough as possible, but essentially another thing I hate is the story retelling. I hate the fact that the manga and the anime are so different. You know, this is the Dragon Ball community, the community that likes to say that everything's not canon. But Super, the most inconsistent piece of garbage I've ever seen for an anime. No one ever really talks about what's canon or not. It's crazy, but I'll talk about more about that in the next video, or especially come Goku Black Art. But if you enjoyed this video, please press the like and subscribe button. It will be appreciated. My goal is 1,000 subs. 1,000 subs by the end of the year. That'd be nice. Thank you. But my goal is 1,000 subs. Please like, please subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And if you want to see this become more of like a series and maybe I put more work into it, let me know down in the comment section, because I don't like Super, and I can tell you a million reasons why I don't like Super, and I'm planning on it. I'm also a person who prefers GT. I don't think GT was a great show, but I do believe that it had its great moments and good ideas. Anyway, this outro has gone on long enough. Afro Anime signing out.